Okay, so let's go in a position of worship, whether that be standing up, sitting down, wherever you want to go around the building, just in a position where you can worship God the best.
so grateful for everything you've given us. God, I pray that the words that Tim speaks just really digs in deep into our hearts. I pray that we all know that God's love is living and is active, and that we all want something today special. Amen.
All right. So we've been talking about the last couple of weeks this idea or notion that I called "you see to leave your faith at the door." And what I mean by that is that sometimes we kind of think of faith in terms of faith is that thing where you kind of just turn off your brain, don't think too much, and just blindly close your eyes and cross your fingers, and that's what faith is supposed to be. And so I've been talking about these last couple of weeks. I don't really think that's a good understanding of faith at all. I don't think that's a biblical teaching of what faith is. It's not that in the least. And so I've tried to give you a different definition to work with when we think about faith, whenever you hear about faith, giving you this definition. So Maddie, what is it? Awesome. There you go. That's it, man. That's the working framework I want you guys to hold on to. Is that right there? Having confidence that God is who he says he is, and he'll do everything that he has promised to do. I think that's a better understanding of what faith is. And so over these last couple of weeks, what I've been doing with you guys is this idea of I've been showing you different examples, different support, evidences, arguments, however you want to say it, that kind of lead us to the conclusion that, you know what, you can be a rational person, a logical person, scientific person, and believe in God. There is good, strong evidence for that. And then we jumped into the New Testament itself of why we can have confidence that the New Testament is accurate, it's true, that it's not legend or made up. And so we went through all of that. So it's all come to a conclusion tonight. We're wrapping this all up, and I'm sure most of you are like, yes, finally, we're going to do something different. So this is what we've been coming to. The cherry on the top right here is about this night tonight. So thanks for hanging with me through all of this. And so when it comes to this idea that I've been trying to share with you, the reason you can have confidence in the Christian God and in the Bible is because there's truth to it, right? And hopefully I've been able to do that, maybe not so effectively as maybe I'd like, but there is truth to the Christian faith and in the Bible. But when we use that word truth, it may be hard for us because in truth today, that term is used in a lot of different kind of understandings, right? You may hear people say something like, I put up there some like different quotes of ideas about truth, of what is truth, what's not truth. And maybe you've heard some of these statements. Maybe you've heard them on TV shows or movies. And if you like start to like listen for them, you might be surprised at just how often statements like this are really in TV shows and movies and things like that. Something along the lines of, hey, well, this is my truth, or that's your truth, or that can be true for you and that's awesome, that's great, but I'm not sure I'm going to follow that. I'm not sure that's true for me. Or, hey, you know what? Truth can be truth to different people. Like different people see things differently, and so like that's cool, and so we need to be respectful of that and honoring that. And so like, hey, you can believe what you want and I can believe what I want, and it's all good. Like that's the third kind of idea. Or the fourth idea is that no one can really know the truth. That's a very popular thing actually today in academia. When you get into college and stuff, there's a very prominent kind of thought is that no one can really know what truth is. We all have kind of glimpses of it, and we kind of can see it maybe, or like a little bit, but we don't have the complete truth. And really that comes down to this idea of like religion and God, that all the religions in the world have a little bit of truth to them. And so if you think about it, like God's on top of the mountain, and all these religions are different pathways up the mountain, but eventually they're going to all get to God, so it's all good. That kind of goes along with that last one. Like we don't all know exactly the truth, but we're just kind of doing the best we can to make it to what is the real reality in the world. Okay? I don't know if you've ever heard anybody have those kind of statements, say anything similar to that. Just the other night, watching a show with my wife and Anna, I don't even know if you caught this when we were watching that show, but there was a doctor talking to one of his patients who was like freaking out about an experience that he had. And the doctor told him, hey, calm down. It's going to be okay because this is your truth. I mean, he actually said those words. I was just like, wow, there it is. Just blatant like that. But here's the thing. Are those statements true? Like, are they reality? Do they match up with reality? Is what I just said earlier about all religions make it to God eventually, so it really doesn't matter which one you follow, as long as you're following something, is that a true statement? Is it true that you can believe something and that's cool and I can believe something different? Is that cool, even if they contradict each other? Is that true? Can you really do that? And so when it comes to this idea of what is true, what is actuality that meets up with reality, okay? It's not just simply a thought, but like it is real, it is true. How do you know what truth is? How do you determine what is truth? Okay, so that's kind of where I want to go tonight. And so to do that, I want to give you some principles, some characteristics of truth. And so for something to be true, this must be a characteristic of it to be true. If that makes sense. It's hard to like define that without using the word true in it. Like these things have to be true for it to be true. Like that's kind of weird, but it's true. All right, so here's the first one. For something to be true is this. Truth is not discovered. Truth is discovered. It's not invented. It exists independent of your knowledge of it. Okay, now what do I mean by that? All right, who's the scientist that we credit with gravity and the apple and all that? All right, Sir Isaac Newton, right? Did Sir Isaac Newton invent gravity? No. He discovered gravity. Before then, gravity still existed before he defined it and explained it. So the truth of gravity being a reality existed prior to him ever explaining it.
It's like those memes. It's like when I was running invented, and it's like that. So people before.
Right. So it's the idea that if something is true, we don't invent truth. We only discover truth. It is revealed to us and we gain knowledge of it, but we don't invent it. Something is true, it is. It's not created, okay? Are you with me there? Like gravity. He didn't create it. He discovered the principles of it, was able to explain it so that now we understand it more fully thanks to what Isaac did and an apple falling on its head, if that's even true. But he didn't create the truth of gravity. Are you with me there? So that's the first principle. We can discover truth, we don't invent it. Second thing is this, is the second principle is that truth is independent of the person who's professing it. Meaning, if something is true, it is true regardless of the person who is relaying that information to you. So if someone is super, super sweet and super, super nice, you're like, oh my gosh, you're the sweetest person ever, I'm just gonna be your best friend for life. They can still tell a lie. It's independent of them what truth is. And the opposite is true. A jerk who's really, really mean can still make a truth statement, claim something to be true. So something is true completely independent of the person, good or bad, right? Me or you or anyone doesn't make something true. It's independent of us completely. It's outside of us. Does that make sense? You with me there? Okay, all right, here's the third one. Truth is, it's not gonna give it to us. There we go. Truth is unchanging even if our beliefs about truth change. Okay, let that sink in for a minute. Like, what does that really mean? Okay, truth is unchanging even if our beliefs about truth change. For example, there was a time when the majority of the world believed the world was flat, right? And if you were to ask them, is the world flat? They'd be like, yeah, that's true. The world is flat, okay? That was the belief. Was the world flat at that time? No, and it's still not, okay? So the truth is the world was round. It's a globe, even though the belief was wrong. So there is a difference between what we believe and what is actually truth. There can be a difference. Let me say it that way. All right? So now today, the majority of people, unless you're Kyrie, believes the earth is round, right? I mean, I don't think any of y'all have been taught in science class that the earth is still flat, right? You are taught it's round. That is the general belief now because it is true, all right? So the beliefs have changed, but the truth itself did not change. The world was always round, just our belief about the world changed over time. Does that make sense? So the truth doesn't change, but our beliefs about it can change. There's a difference there, all right? Here's the next one, is this. Beliefs can't change truth, no matter how sincerely you hold on to them. Okay? Your passionate belief in something doesn't make something true. Even if you earnestly, honestly believe it with everything you've got, and it actually changes the way you live your life, just because you believe in something doesn't make it true. Because again, truth is independent of you or me. So it doesn't matter if I believe it or if I don't believe it. It doesn't change it from being true or not true. So today, if you believed that the world was flat and you absolutely refuse to get on an airplane or get on a boat because you're like, no, you're going to fall off the edge. And so you believe it sincerely, you affects your decisions, you will not travel because you're like, nope, I'm not going to take that chance. It doesn't make it true. You're just earnestly, sincerely mistaken in what you believe. But your belief in it doesn't make something true or not. Does that make sense? You with me there? All right. So when we look at all of those things together, it comes to this idea of, for truth to really be true, then it's transcultural. And what I mean by that is that it's true for all people in all places for all time. That's what I mean when I say transcultural. If something is true, then it is true for all people in all places across all time. For example, 2 + 2 is 4. That is true. I know, mind blown there for you, but you just took your STAR test, so you should be good with that. All right? It's true. And it doesn't matter if you're alive today, you were alive 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 1,000 years in the future. If you live on this continent or around the world, it does not matter. 2 + 2 is still 4, right? So that's what I mean. If something is true, it is true, period. It's true for all people in all places for all times. You with me there? Makes sense, right? So it's not like you fly to the moon and be all like, hey, up here on the moon, 2 + 2 isn't 4. Up here, it's 5. No, it doesn't happen. It's true because it's true. And so it's true no matter where you are or who you are, and not even matter what time, okay? And so here's the big conclusion over all the characteristics when you think about truth, is that if all of these things are true, and they are, then all truths are absolute truths. Meaning, they're not partially true, kind of true, sort of true for you, but not true for me. If they're truth, they're absolute truth. Absolutely, completely, 100%. Okay? Those are the characteristics, the principles of something to be true. All of those things are accurate about it. It matches up with reality. Okay? So why does all of that matter with what we've been talking about in the Christian faith and stuff like that? Okay? Why it matters is because thinking about when you encounter people in different beliefs, in different systems and stuff like that, you will always have to gauge and question and ask yourself, is this true? Do what I believe is true? Is what they're saying true? Is something new being revealed to me? And so you need to be able to analytically be able to process information that you get all the time when you're confronted with different ideas and beliefs and ask yourself, is this true or not? And so when it comes to truth, where reality matches up with the statement of facts, the existence of God in the Bible is true. Okay? The existence of the Christian God and his word is truth. Jesus himself even told us that in John 14:6. John 14:6, he says this, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. So Jesus is the truth, the standard of truth, and because all truth, therefore, comes from God, he is truth. And so going back through those kind of ideas of thinking about when it comes to the Christian faith, it means the things of God are true, his word is true, and it is not invented. We don't invent things, add things to God. He reveals himself to us. So we don't create and make God something more than or less than who he is. He is who he is, and he reveals himself to us, and we can come to know him more and better, but we don't invent things about God. God is true. That was that first principle. The second principle was that truth is independent of the one professing it, meaning God is who he is, and his word is true, regardless of the person who tells you about it. So that means if I screw up and I'm mean to you, or you like, dude, I saw you speeding and you like are a terrible driver, that doesn't make God any less true because of the person professing it. Does that make sense? So you don't base your faith and belief in what is true on the person. You base it on the claim of the actual statement of truth or not. So God is true regardless if I'm a good example of that or a bad example of that. It doesn't diminish who God is. And so I kind of use it like as a negative example. Like if I'm a negative example, then you're like, oh. But the other way to think about it is true too. It should actually give us confidence to be able to talk to people about God, because God is God regardless of me. So I don't have to worry about like, am I going to mess this up? Or people going to like freak out because I can't answer their questions? You can't affect truth. God is truth, and he is intact, and he's independent of you. So you can't mess up God, all right? So like, I think it actually gives us encouragement to go like, I can talk to people about God because I'm not going to mess it up, because God is independent of you. That's a principle of what truth is. The third principle was that truth is unchanging, even if our beliefs about him change. God is God, and he is consistent, even though sometimes we can change our view about God and who he is. But that's why we can have difference of opinions on God, and why there's different religions and things like that. Beliefs can be contradictory, but truth cannot be contradictory. God is who God is, and his word is what his word is. And that is set like in stone. Now we can disagree on how to kind of take meaning from that or understanding about it. So our beliefs can change over time. But if our beliefs change, that is not the same thing as God changing. God and truth in the Bible do not change. He is set, and he is consistent with his nature of who he is, and his word is true. He will fulfill every promise that he gives us, okay? So even though we can have difference of opinions, and within, the same faith or with other faiths, that does not impact who God is, okay? So the next one is that beliefs cannot change truth no matter how earnestly you believe them. God is who God is, and he is going to do everything he's promised to do. That's what I told you was the definition of faith to work with. That is set in stone. He is true to his character and nature, regardless of how earnestly I may believe in something that's contrary to that. And there will be a lot of people that you encounter that maybe aren't sure of what God teaches about how you can restore your relationship with him. That through our actions of sin, we've been separated from God because he is holy. But out of his love, he has given us an opportunity to restore that relationship with him by Jesus coming to the cross and dying for us for our sins. And because of that, we have an opportunity to receive grace and forgiveness and be restored to him. So it's through faith through Jesus Christ is how you are restored in a relationship to God. That is the truth. But you will encounter some people go, but God's a God of love, right? Sure he is. God's a God of grace, right? Sure he is. He's a God of mercy, right? Of course he is. Those things are all true as well. So then, wouldn't God honor someone who really tried really hard all their life to be a good person, and they tried really, really hard to do everything right, and they wanted to do things, but they just didn't really understand the whole Jesus thing. So they never believed in Jesus, but they're a good person. Like, they're a good friend. And like, I think God's going to honor that and let them into heaven. You can earnestly believe that all you want to. It does not change the truth of what God and his word says. Does that make sense? Like, there are things that people want to be true and believe it really earnestly. That doesn't make it true, especially when it comes to things like faith, morality, and religion. Okay, so that's how like this kind of works together. And then the fifth one, truth is transcultural. For all people, all times, all places. I believe that God is I believe in the sufficiency of Scripture, that God has revealed to us everything we need in order to restore a relationship with him, that he has provided for us the way and the path of salvation through his Scripture. So it's good for all people, all places, all times, just as it is, because it is true. And then the last one, it's absolute. It's not partially true. It's not kind of true. It's not sort of true. It's not like, oh, I really like John, but I'm not so sure about, numbers, whatever. Like, no, it's true because it's God's word, period. So it's 100% absolutely, not sort of, not kind of, not iffy, not like, oh, it's just true on the weekends or whatever. It's true because it's absolutely true. Okay? And so because of that, it means that the notion that we talked about, that a lot of people you will meet that have this moral relative idea of like, hey, you believe what you want and that's cool, and I'll believe what I want and that's cool. Those are contradictory to each other, so therefore they both cannot be true. So that is not a real truth, that everyone can believe everything they want and it'll all be okay in the end. Those contradict each other, so they can't, because that goes against what absolute truth is. Right? The notion that we're all just climbing up the mountain to get to God, that's not absolute truth, because those different religions actually contradict each other in important areas. So they can't all be true. And if something is true, it's absolutely true, 100% true. Not it is, right? And so you will be faced with a lot of ideas and thoughts about what is true and what is real and what is right. But understand the principles of what makes something true is it has to be absolutely true for all people, all places, all times. And I know that the Christian God in the Bible is absolutely true. God and his word are the definition of truth. True for all people, in all places, for all time.